Hey, if you hadn't hit that subscribe button yet, we would love to invite you to join the Para family. You can also follow us at The Para Podcast on all social media platforms. Come on, come join the conversation. Hey, so we back again, another Para Podcast episode. And as always, it's your boy Joe.
Hey, I'm Candace. Hey, y'all.
Hey, we're back. And today we wanted to have a conversation around a topic that it seems to be pervasive around the social sphere, right? It's this topic around the high value man.
Yes.
Oh man. You know, it seems like this conversation is typically centered around a certain set of metrics that this said man should have. And most predominantly, it seems to be like centered around a man that makes over six figures. And then from there, it's a conversation around all the things that this said man may deserve and is entitled to, you know?
Right.
And there's a lot of tentacles that go from there, right? So we decided,
Let's talk about it.
let's talk about it. All right, so hold on. We want to first, as always, get the ladies' opinion about what is even the definition of a high value man. Now, let me throw it out there. That's assuming that, you know, I don't know, you're listening to all the blue pills and the red pills and the green pills, whatever
Nah.
color pill, you know.
Right.
But from your perspective, you know, with all the sound bites that are out there, what is, matter of fact, give me the definitions of a high value man that you've heard, right? And then we can talk about Candace's definition of a high value man.
Perfect. This is perfect. This is actually exactly where my mind was. So, my understanding from what I've seen out in the ethos, what I've heard, is that the high value man is a man that makes a certain amount of money, like you said, six figures, can provide stability, and providing stability in a way that the woman that becomes in relationship with this man doesn't have to do anything to sustain herself or their life.
So the soft life.
Yes, the soft life. This soft life that everyone, you know,
covets
and talks about. Yes, and desires, right? So my understanding that I hear when I'm, you know, just scrolling through social media is, you know, hey, you know, if I'm making a certain amount of money as a woman, you need to be making enough money, more than me, and enough to take care of me and you and anything that pertains to us. And then my money is my money. I can do whatever I want to do with it. You know, you pay the tab for everything and keep me comfortable to where I don't got to be stressed. I don't got to work hard. I don't have to do anything, but just be a woman.
Well kept.
Yeah, just be well kept.
Okay.
I've heard things like, hey, you know, if you're dating me, you know, ain't no split no checks, you know, we not going half. You paying for the bill every time we go out to eat, whatever activities we do, you better have the money to make sure it's taken care of, you know, and I don't want any financial burden as a woman. That's what I personally hear out here in the ethos.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let me throw in, you know, what I hear in the
What's your
ethos is a
perspective?
little extension to that, and then we can start getting into the conversation about how we feel about it and perspective and all that. Yeah, for the most part, you know, I feel like I've heard a lot of what it is you've shared. Let me first, because the voice I heard that you shared in, I heard a woman's voice just now.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
That's the perspective I know.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what the men think about this. Please tell us what that is.
So I'll come from the man voice that I hear, and then I'll come from the woman's voice, and I'll hit the objective stuff versus opinionated things first.
All right.
Yes, this six-figure mark is definitely a staple to this conversation for sure, right? And so to the point where, like you said, it should be irrelevant if the woman in the relationship is making any income, the amount of income that she makes, how she makes that income, it's really irrelevant,
That's
right? even one might take from that, her money is her money, right?
Mhm.
And that's assuming she's even making money,
Yeah.
so
Mm-mm.
making money could be optional here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But whether she's making money or not, it's kind of relevant when it pertains to sustainability, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, Also the paying the tabs and the bills and the different things like that. I mean, for the most part, what we gather from this is ain't no bills in a woman's name
Mm,
is how it
that's
feels
how it
at
feels.
times.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think another element that's in there is this man not only needs to be making money, but he needs to have social respectability,
Mhm.
right?
Okay, okay,
And
okay,
a
yeah.
bit of a name and things like
Okay,
that,
yeah, yeah, that's
that
true.
can get you in the doors and, be known in whatever ethos that you're in,
Okay,
right?
okay.
Um, I think there's some assumed positional things attached to it, right?
Okay.
Like whatever his vocation or profession is,
Oh,
he
okay.
has a name around that,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
is respected in that regard too.
Okay.
Because I think one of the things is there's a lot of ways to get money,
Okay.
and we want that way to be respectable, if you will, right? So I think
Yeah,
that's attached to it.
that's true.
And, I feel, I don't know, there may be another element to it that's like he's attached to other men
Mhm.
that are high value
Okay.
and he's a welcome member of the club,
Understood.
right?
Okay, okay.
Now, if I come from some of the elements here that may be voiced from the women out there, I think you hit a lot of it. Yes, soft life,
Mhm.
not only being able to do the bare minimum of paying the bills and all that type of stuff, but just providing the type of life and the comforts that a woman would want.
Mm,
And on top of that, if she and he were to have children,
mhm.
he could cover the tab, you
Mhm.
know and once again, she is given the options on what she wants to do, um, but there's no pressurized demand around the woman in the relationship when it pertains to financial sustainability.
Mhm.
It's the baseline.
Right.
So
Don't
are
no
we
pressure. No
are
pressure.
we are we
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
solid on our
I
definitions?
think I think we are. I think we are. I want to clarify one thing because you mentioned something that I didn't say, and I just want to make sure I'm hearing you right.
Hmm.
You said this man, this high value man, needs to have a name around his vocation or have a respectable means of making income, right? So we're talking like there's certain job
Hmm.
descriptions
Hmm.
that are considered to not fall into that high value category that women are like, nah, I don't want to date nobody that does this particular job or that particular job. I
Yeah.
need someone who's basically a boss,
Yeah, yeah.
right? That's what we're
Okay,
saying?
listen. All right. And there are, different voices out there, so there can be different flavors, but
Yeah.
if you aggregate this,
Mm-hmm.
there's a tone of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the most recent pronounced uh voicing of this was Ebony K. Williams was on a podcast
Okay.
and was having a conversation around this very topic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, a guest threw out there, hey, what if a gentleman was a bus driver, right?
I
Because
remember
there
that.
are some instances where you have bus drivers, truck drivers, people in professions that is a little bit more vocational, a little bit more considered maybe blue collarish,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And her quick response was, he better own the bus,
Right. Okay.
right?
Be a boss.
Okay, so it
Yeah.
left an impression
Mm-hmm.
that it's not only suitable to just even have a job that may pay a decent amount,
Yeah.
but he must have a certain status with it.
Mm.
I think the thing was being emphasized in that moment is, hey, there's men of all different type of professions. There's even trash men. I
Mm-hmm.
think it was said that may make six figures in
Mm-hmm.
certain cases, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And not to go too far down that rabbit hole, but
Mm-hmm.
in that instance, my mind went, okay, would she have said the same thing if someone was a senior, a senior level lawyer in a law firm, and
Mm-hmm.
he may not own the law firm, his
Mm-hmm.
name may not be on the moniker,
Right,
right?
right, right.
But he's a high level lawyer,
Mhm.
and he's not the boss,
Mhm.
but he's a high level lawyer earning. Would
Mhm.
she have said he better own the law
I
firm,
understood. I
or would
understood.
that role have been, um, significant enough and held enough dignity for
Right.
her, right?
Right, right,
And
right.
we're just using this as
As an
a
example.
prototype for many other conversations,
For
right? So
sure.
I think there is a conversation around that part,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think we got a good baseline
Okay.
of what's floating around out there.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start getting into, I mean, we hit a couple of bullets here.
Mhm.
Let's start getting into some of these bullets
Okay.
and how we feel about it.
Yes.
Uh, Of course, the first thing is anchored on. It's almost like the epicenter of this is income, right?
Yes,
A
for
man's
sure.
value being centered around the income that he makes,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
How do we feel about this?
Okay. So, I don't agree with that.
Mm, okay.
I do not agree that the value of a man is and should be predicated on his income. You know, there is a lot of people in the world that make a lot of money, but that doesn't make them a good man, you know? So, my thoughts about it are really getting into the difference in how I personally would define high value versus the criteria that seems to be out there now that
Mm,
people are
okay.
evaluating. You know what I
So
mean?
you have a list.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. All right.
Always did.
I mean, you would think I probably would be intimately familiar with this list,
You would.
but I don't know that
Yeah,
I
you
ever
would.
asked the I didn't ask the list in this form,
No, yeah.
by any means, but I want to hear
Yeah.
this list, and
Okay.
I'm gonna be like, going down,
Do I fit this
trying
list?
to let's hit the
Yeah.
list.
So for me, high value is more than just like what a person does, more than just income because uh just because a person, and I'm going to get into my list now, just because a person has high income, that doesn't mean they have high character. That doesn't mean they're a trustworthy person. That doesn't mean they're going to be loyal or faithful. That doesn't mean they have a vision for what they want to build in life that extends beyond themselves, you know. That doesn't mean that they have principles, that govern their actions, thoughts, and decisions. That doesn't mean that they have a baseline of a standard that they could communicate to a people that is underneath their leadership, that they can rally around and then execute as a unit. You know what I'm saying? Um, to me, and they don't, oh, of course, and the most important thing, that doesn't mean they have faith. That doesn't mean they have a relationship with God that leads and governs their decisions that they make.
So I noticed that this first, critical element was very quantitative, but so far most of the lists that I've heard you uh, you know, enumerate
Mhm.
here
Mhm.
were more qualitative
That's
and
right.
intangible,
That's
right?
exactly right.
Okay, and to be honest, a lot of times when these conversations are being had, there's little to no conversation around the qualitative elements of a man and these intangibles and things of the sort.
Right.
And then a lot of times, as the conversation is being had, and some of the paths that it goes down, although the focal point is not these qualitative components, the quality, the perspectives about quality is being put on display,
Yes,
right?
yes.
During the
For
conversation,
sure.
right? Right? And one can feel however they feel about the type of things that are being said
Yes.
from one seat to the other
Mhm.
from a qualitative perspective. Do you feel oftentimes this is something that is highly neglected? And then the qualitative side of it, do you feel like it's highly neglected in the conversation? But then even the type of voices that are having these conversations and what they think each side deserves and all these things, what type of qualities do you think are being put on display while the conversation is even being had?
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's all right. So I think it's highly neglected to talk about the qualities for sure. Because but here's what I think. I think most of the conversations from what I perceive tend to come from people who may have hoped for or even started with looking for some of these qualities
Mm,
and then feeling like in their experiences they haven't been able to accomplish finding someone with these qualities. And then of course over time, especially the older you get, the
mm,
more you work, the more you start to build your own life, and like understand what it takes to sustain yourself, let alone try to build a family or a business or pursue purpose. Then you start really kind of looking at, okay, hold on, let me redefine this and how can I make this easier for myself.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So hold on. It sounds like you're saying I heard a couple of things in there that there's a level of skepticism you can hear in the voices,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a bit of a cup half empty
Yes.
bend,
Mm-hmm.
right? To where and it's self-interest and self-preservation in it,
Yes.
to where now in whatever stage of life that I'm in, I'm looking for what's in it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have a whole bunch of hope and optimism about what's out there, particularly in context of whatever my goals are. So my tolerance, my openness is very
Yes.
narrow, and I have a very you know, uh, detailed, narrow, specific
Mm-hmm.
set of things
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for, I'm willing to accept, and that's just it.
That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's very on point because if you think about the target, or not target, but the audience, um, of the people that are having these conversations, they are of a certain age most of the time.
Oh yeah,
They're
a lot
in
of
a
time.
certain stage in life. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? So they don't have no more time to waste. Like
yeah,
the time is ticking, and they're trying to figure out how can I get what I need
yeah.
to get to the things that I really deeply
Well,
desire.
hold on. I hear that, and I agree in some ways, but I feel like now this is spanned at all age ranges. Now I
Yeah,
feel like this perspective is infectious,
it is. I'm
and
sure.
I feel like young and old
Hmm.
feel like we have no time to waste. We have to get to the soft life tomorrow.
Yeah.
you know?
Well, I will say at this point, I agree with you that it has
Yes.
spread to, it seemed like all women are aiming for this soft life we're talking
Straight
about.
to the soft life.
Yeah.
No investment time.
Right, right,
I
right.
want my dividends
Right now.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want this stock to
Oh,
split. In fact,
man.
I want it to split and, get some payouts. I
Right.
want it ASAP.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right,
For
right.
sure.
And then let's say on the other side of it, wow, there's so many elements that converge into that concept
Mhm.
because I started to talk about the age ranges of the men, right?
Mm.
Because it's not just the men. There are certain things that the men in these conversations say they want, and they want it right now,
Mm.
and there's no time for growth, development, evolution, or real investment, right?
Mhm.
And I think on the men's side, there's a heavy lean to say, well, if I even meet these metrics, all my investment is in meeting that metric. So then, therefore, I'm entitled to get whatever fruits of my labor out of, someone that I am getting involved in
Mhm.
immediately
Mhm.
without having to actually make an investment, so into be instrumental in the cultivation of that person and all
Mhm.
that type of thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then that also just suggests that if you really look at demographics that are out there, even financial metrics and all of that, there's only but so many people, especially at least in the Americas, that meet some of these metrics.
Mm. That's
And
true.
then as you dig deeper into it, as far as the age ranges of the people who do meet those metrics,
Mhm.
well, if I'm a 21-year-old young lady and I want someone that's already at that metric,
Mhm.
f- forget 21. If I'm 18,
Yeah.
because I'm legal now,
You're right, 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 right,
right?
right. Yeah.
If I'm 18 and I want someone that meets these
Right.
metrics, if I were to actually do the math,
Yeah,
well, that may make me skip a whole range of people,
for sure.
because the average young man between 18 and 22, well, they're probably still in college.
Mhm.
If they're not in college, well, they're doing a profession that the likelihood of them hitting that metric is pretty low,
Yeah, for sure.
unless they just have a really great talent or a really great skill or something
Mhm.
of the sort,
Mhm.
or they may not be, um, going after these dollars
In conventional
in conventional ways,
ways.
right?
Understood.
And so that doesn't meet the parameter. Well,
Right.
for some it might,
Right.
but you know,
Most.
for most that
Yeah.
doesn't meet the parameters,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So that might make that young lady between, I say 18 to even 22 because that's still within that collegiate
College range.
space.
Mhm.
She's skipping every guy that's sitting on that campus,
Mhm.
while
Mhm.
she's at school
Mhm.
or in whatever sphere she's in if she's dealing with people that are her peers,
Right, right,
right?
right, right, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean that's what I gather from that.
Mhm. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. I think that's very interesting perspective. You're right. You have people aiming for a certain demographic of men
Hmm.
because of their um expectations of stability.
Yeah.
You're not going to have that in that college range.
Yeah.
You know, that's true.
Which goes into even the definition
Hmm.
of stability,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
Now, once again, you named off a number of things that are intangible.
Hmm.
They're more qualitative, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, what's the relationship between these things that you named off and the concept of stability?
Okay. So, because stability, let's define it, right?
Yeah.
Stability is not just having a roof over your head, having means, food on the table, having clothes on your back, having, transportation, having, your basic necessities to live well,
And listen, if you listen to this conversation, it can't be basic now. It need to be Prada, Gucci, Louis, organic
Right, right,
chicken now. It
right.
gotta be
It got to be
organic
top
chicken
tier
now. It
everything.
can't be, come on now, but
Right,
continue.
right. So
Okay.
stability isn't just about your provision, but it's also about, I personally define it as, you know, emotional stability, spiritual stability and physical stability. And stability is, having a sense of safety, a sense of provision where your needs are met, you know? Um, and peace, you
Mm.
know? There's peace in there too because you're not necessarily worried about what's going to happen next or where you're going to get your next meal or, you may not be stressed out about how you're going to get the things you need to live.
Yeah. You know what? So, man, you triggered a number of things in my mind. In a previous episode, we were talking about this concept of prosperity, right?
Yes.
And, I made a statement and I said the prosperity isn't just about the tangible things.
Mhm.
It's about you being very healthy in your soul and you feel fulfilled. You're mentally healthy, right?
Mhm.
But you're healthy in your spirit,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And then you have the tangible things. And I think it's not only about having the things, but the method by which you get it.
Mhm.
There's a scripture that says, "The blessings of the Lord maketh rich and
And
addeth
no
no
sorrow.
sorrow."
Right.
So there may be a person who actually has tangible things, but they're depressed, or they've
Right.
compromised themselves significantly,
Mhm.
or they have all type of things going on in their
Mhm.
pursuit to get those resources,
Mhm.
and therefore their whole household inherit that stress or inherits whatever things that came along with their method to get that.
Exactly.
So the question is, will that then therefore be prosperity or safety or stability
Right.
or whatever it is that you're looking for, right?
Exactly.
And I'll say this too, like currency is just a medium of exchange.
Mhm.
People don't really, if they really were to think about it, don't really want the money. They want the things that the money brings,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
And if in your pursuit to get the money and the things, if you've completely lost your peace,
Mhm.
if you're going crazy, if your relationship is in shambles,
Mhm.
right? I
Mhm.
mean, there's so many elements here. The last one, because I can go on forever about some of the elements, but even in a man's pursuit for that money and resources, if that's his highest pursuit, and he has no time for you,
Oof.
right?
Oof.
And he doesn't value you. His
Mhm.
highest value is a dollar.
Mhm.
Well, are you happy?
That's right.
Are
That's
you
right.
stable?
Right.
Because you talked about emotional
That's
stability and all
right.
those types of things.
Exactly. Yes. That's exactly what I'm saying. And that's when you get into all those qualitative nuances and that's why they matter
Hmm.
because like you said, the money is not can't be the definition of high value because the money does not equal peace. It doesn't equal what actually would make your life like it doesn't equal contentment. You know, it doesn't
Mhm.
equal like it's not going to satisfy everything that you need,
Yeah.
you know? And so there's so many layers that I think could be unpacked in this conversation that could, should be considered and I think should be highlighted and elevated beyond just the financial provision.
Yeah.
I think it should be more of those conversations. So let's go back to the college student you talked about, right?
Mhm.
To me, a wise woman would see a college student and would know, like, yeah, I want to be have a sense of stability. I want to have a sense of peace. I want to have a sense of direction and where I'm going. I want to be with somebody who's a boss or a go getter, right? Those things can be identified by looking at some of those more qualitative things. Like the person may not have all the money and the car and all the stuff, but if you can see and meet a person and see that they have character, that they're a good person, that they don't lie, that they have integrity, that they have ambition, the things that they set out to do, they finish them. They are constantly trying to learn and figure out how to grow and make themselves better. That they're the type of friend that makes the world around them better, that they pour into others, that their friend groups are people who are constantly sharpening each other and like building each other up and making each other better. They're humble enough to admit what they don't know and open enough to learn so that they can grow. And then they have a vision of where they're going, so they're not just aimlessly trying to do all these things because they're just trying to look like they're doing something that matters, but they actually have a plan or have at least a target that they're aiming for, even if they don't know all the things. If a woman can discern those qualities in a man, you have your high value right there. That will translate. And that's the stuff on the inside of a man, whether he's in an up season or a down season, whether he's making money or not. Those are the characters and qualities that would make that a man could that generate high value or generate high income.
Mm.
So like let's say a person has those characters that I'm sorry, let's say a person has those qualities, right? And they are prosperous and they're doing good, they're in an up season. And let's say something happens outside of their control, that money is down. It's those characteristics that they have, it's the qualities that they possess that will make a person be able to bounce back,
Mm.
to be able to get themselves back up because they have that grit, that grind, that
Right.
character, that perseverance, that ambition, that motivation, that drive,
Right.
that level of responsibility. You know what I mean? It's so many other things to take into account. Like, if you just evaluate this based on money, money comes and goes. That
Yeah, it
can't be the
does.
metric.
You
It's
know,
yeah.
the way I heard what you said is that, people are looking for the end result,
Mhm.
but they're not willing to discern something when it's in seed form or it's just kind of budding, right?
Right.
It's almost like, man, I want apples all the time, but I don't ever want to deal with planting an apple tree,
Yes.
watering that apple tree,
Right.
making any type of investment in that apple
Right.
tree. I just want. I want to take, take, take. I want to eat, eat, eat,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But I don't want to make any investment. So I haven't even
Mhm.
developed my ability to perceive something when it's along its journey
Right.
and make an investment and hold just as much value in the thing while it's along its journey
Right.
as I would once it produces that end result.
Mhm.
And so this is the mind of an investor, right?
Oh yeah.
And this whole world is made of producers and consumers,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Mhm.
The greatest producers invested when there was nothing because they had a vision for the thing,
Yeah.
and they become the greater consumer in the end because they get to actually reap the reward because
Mhm.
they were smart enough to invest,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
When a thing was low, and you can really reap when it gets high,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But then you also, in thinking down this path, this kind of like tree,
Mhm.
garden path.
Right. Yeah.
A
Yeah.
garden
Yeah.
is kind of a theme here,
Yeah.
right? um, well, it's not the apple that actually, sprouts on the end of the tree
Mhm.
that makes that apple tree valuable. It's the DNA and the inward workings of that tree and
Exactly.
its ability to produce
That's
apples that
exactly
makes
right.
the value.
That's right.
And you're saying that, oh man, you prioritize having the ability to perceive and discern, even if you meet someone along their journey,
Mhm.
their value, and
Mhm.
then knowing how to tap in and make an investment there, right?
Mhm.
And the greater values are these intangibles, and it's more of the spirit of the thing
Mhm.
and not just the end result, right?
Exactly.
And having the ability to have that discernment and connect is most important.
Mhm.
Now, let me say this too, just being a person, that, was in college and all that type of thing. The one thing I will give credit, for the university I went to, once again, real HU, illustrious Hampton University, right? Um, I think a lot of the parents sent their children to the university
Mhm.
saying, "Hey, while you're here,
Mhm.
you get you a degree
Mhm.
and you come home with a spouse."
Right.
So a lot of them were on mission,
Okay.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. But, in the collegiate space, right? This is where people are kind of in that transition, right? And I know
Mhm.
everyone doesn't go to college,
Right.
so this premise that I'm coming from actually should transcend just being in the collegiate space,
For
right?
sure.
But we're using this as a microcosm of the conversation.
Mhm.
Um, in the collegiate space, well, people are in this transition of formulating and finding themselves and
Mhm.
choosing their paths and finding their vocation and trying to add skill and knowledge and exposure to themselves to get to these high value metrics
Mhm.
down the road,
Right.
right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
This even contributes to it taking some of us a little bit more time before you even hit that metric,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And but it's clear by the action of it. Not only, well, attending college alone is an action that says you're trying to achieve something,
Yeah.
but these other qualities that you're talking about, like if the person is very purpose driven, they got have good work ethic, right? I think you said this, but I want to say it in a different way. I think if a person has a high sense of identity,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because I think it's by having clarity of your identity, that's the source of the drive and the fuel that you use to go after the things that you're
Yes.
going after. And especially if a person can very clearly and concisely articulate their identity and their purpose,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And they show not only that they can speak it and talk it, but they can walk it.
Mhm.
They're putting, feet to action, right? On
Mhm.
what they say they want to do, and they're dedicated, they're reliable and dependable. But then they have these other qualitative nuances, like they're not a liar,
Right.
they you know they're consistent and reliable,
Mhm. Mhm.
they're dedicated, all these
Mhm.
different types of things. It gives you a high sense of where they're going. Once again, scriptures say, well, a tree by the fruit that it bears.
That's right.
So you can look at a tree even when it's not full of apples,
Right.
and you can say, oh, I see a little apple, sprouting up here. It's not in
Exactly.
full blossom, full bloom, right?
Exactly.
But I see that sprouting up, so
Mhm.
you can say, "Oh yeah, yeah, that's an apple tree.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can see it. It has
Mhm.
the qualities of an apple, right?"
Yep.
And even if it's not at its full level of producing all the apples you would like,
Mhm.
a wise one might say, "Oh, let me pour a little bit of water on this."
That's right.
On this apple tree is sprouting,
Right.
let me till some stuff. Let me prune some stuff there. Let me
Mhm.
invest here because
Mhm.
I know where it's headed
That's
by
right.
looking at where it is today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love that you said that because that makes me think of the fruit of the spirit too.
Mm.
The fruit of the spirit is not money.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
fruit of the spirit ain't a corporate job. The
Yeah.
fruit of the spirit is gentleness, meekness, kindness, patience,
Yeah.
faith,
Yeah.
long suffering. Those are the qualities of that matter to God. And that's
Hmm.
the real fruit that we really should be inspecting and looking for.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
feel like these conversations have it backwards.
Yeah.
Like, let's highlight those things first. Because if you have those things, there's so many things in scripture that that show you that the path is to have the fruit of the spirit, to have the wisdom of God. Those things lead to wealth, riches, and honor. You know what I'm saying? So instead of putting the emphasis on the wealth, the riches, and the honor first, let's look at what the real fruit should be, and that's the fruit of the spirit.
So you're talking about like having the right foundation, right?
Yeah.
And the things that, because as you said before, money can come and go,
Mhm.
life circumstances can come and go,
Mhm.
but you want to make sure you're partnering with somebody that's on a foundation that fundamentally should be kind of unchanging, right?
That's
The
right.
spirit of the person.
Right.
So if we to bring it back to very practical elements of this, well, if the person has the six figures, but they're not loving,
Mhm.
they're not kind,
Mhm.
they're not meek or humble,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
They're not long suffering,
Mhm.
right? Whatsoever.
Mhm.
There's no joy when you're
Mhm.
around them, right? No peace when you're around them, right?
Yeah.
They're not gentle,
Right.
right?
Mm.
All these fruits of the spirit that
Mhm.
you're mentioning, right?
Mhm.
Um, are you going to be happy, if this person doesn't have these nuances, right?
Mhm.
And then I'll say, even, from a man's perspective, you said it, seeking after the fruits of the spirit, first of all, comes from a relationship with God, right?
Yes.
So,
Mhm.
my advice is that for anyone who's seeking a level of peace and prosperity, a relationship with God is your first step. I'm not saying that having a relationship with God guarantees everyone's going to be wealthy,
Yeah.
but I think that depends on your definition of
Of wealth.
wealthy in the first place,
Yep.
right? We put wealth all centered around a dollar,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And hey, am I against dollars?
No.
No,
We're not against
not
dollars.
by any means, right? But it's not the only metric, and it's not the greatest metric.
It's right.
Because as you said, if a life circumstance were to come and something were to affect your finances, well, you need to have, the stability in your soul
Mhm.
and in your spirit
Mhm.
to weather that season. And that's what will allow you to have the chance to get back up and
Mm.
re-up and
Mhm.
make your way back to whatever dollar metric that you aspire towards, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But if you're poor in spirit, right,
Right. Right. Right.
you're
Right.
poor in your soul, there's a lot of things in life that can hit you and you won't be able to survive.
Right.
And let alone if you attach a relationship with another person
Mhm.
with it. If we're both poor in spirit and everything is centered around a dollar, well, what's going to happen when we hit the hard times?
Right.
Because the hard times are going to come in some form.
For sure.
You know, it may not always be money, but
Mhm.
hard times come to every relationship,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
What's going to keep our relationship together and make our relationship last and sustain
Right.
if it's all centered around a dollar metric,
Right.
right?
Right. You're
Yeah.
right. It likely will not be sustained.
Yeah.
And you hear of cases like that. You see instances like, a shift happens and relationships drift apart, because it's rooted on the thing that's unfortunately can be fleeting at times,
Yeah.
versus building it on that foundation,
Yeah.
that we're talking about.
A lot of times this conversation also is either explicitly dovetails into this or it's implied about power dynamics, right? Power dynamics when it pertains to this whole high value man.
Mhm.
And it's like a tug of war,
Mm,
right?
mm.
About the power dynamics of
Yeah,
this
yeah,
and
yeah.
who should be entitled to what, when, and how, and where, and what right?
Mhm.
What do you think about this?
The power dynamics. Well, so there's a degree that I'm not always on social media like that, right?
Oh, of course, yeah.
So
You're too busy living a soft life,
I'm
but the real soft life. But continue.
but so give me more context to, you know.
Yeah, so I feel like a lot of times the conversation is centered around like, that money metric
Mhm.
being a defining factor
Mhm.
on the power a man should have in the relationship versus
Understood.
the power a woman should have in the relationship,
Mhm.
what he should be entitled to
Mhm.
versus what she should be entitled to,
Mhm.
how he should interact with the woman versus how she should interact with him,
Mhm.
and what you should and should not be worthy of based on this metric.
Mhm.
And I mean, once again, there's a lot of tentacles,
Mhm. Mhm.
what one can get away with versus one who doesn't meet this metric cannot get away with. It's so many elements, right?
Okay, so just for clarity, are you saying that a person who makes a certain amount of money, generally speaking, can get away with certain behaviors, actions, and decisions versus someone who does not?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so
Or are
let me
we
talk
talking
about the
about
men.
men
Let's talk
versus
about the men.
women?
Let me talk
Okay.
about the men. So I mean, there's a lot of guys that who are advocating for this high value man thing. They come from the angle that it's upon that foundation that they should be in control and that they should, be the leader, and therefore they should be able to demand certain behaviors and certain ways of operating from their woman and all those things, let alone any other set of things that they may feel that they're entitled to, right?
Okay. Okay.
But then you may have, from the woman's perspective, I think there's some varied vantage points here. There is a sect of women, at least in that social sphere, having this conversation that say, "Oh, a man should be making a certain amount of money, and still there shouldn't be any power dynamic
Okay.
here.
Okay.
It
Okay.
should be you should be glad that I bring my beauty
Mm,
and my womanness to
mm-hmm.
the table, and
Okay.
that's it,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And still
Mm-hmm.
I do what I want, whatever. You just should be providing, right?
Yeah.
And then you have some that, there's always this whole conversation about like, softness, nurturing, all that type of stuff. People bring some of the domestic stuff in the conversation and all that. And so then there's a sect that says, well, only if you're bringing this high value centered around this metric of the six figures,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe we can talk about it,
Okay. Okay.
right?
Okay. I got
That's
you.
what I
So
hear.
I'll only cook for you
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
make me if you make six figures.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. And maybe,
And
but
that's a maybe.
that's
You maybe you'll get a hot meal when you come home from
yeah,
work.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I
yeah.
got you. I got you.
Right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if you don't make such, how dare you? If you don't call DoorDash,
That's right.
Grubhub,
I gotta feed these
Uber
kids.
Eats.
You grown, feed yourself. Right?
Right, right,
Okay.
right, right. And
Okay.
let's put it out here. Grown people can feed
Yeah, they
themselves,
can.
okay?
They can.
Let's establish this,
Yes,
right?
they're
Okay.
capable.
But in the context of this conversation, right? So yeah, let's start the conversation, this part of the conversation like this. Let's say a man does, right, meet this six-figure, high value metric.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say he is, hey, covering all the bills, there's not a bill in your name,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, hey, if you're making money, hey man, your pocket change, is your pocket change,
Mm-hmm.
and you're living that soft life, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
As a woman, what do you think? Is there any set of things that based on that metric and then therefore entitles a man to, or no? What do you think about this? Or
Okay.
or is it just a stupid
No,
conversation?
no,
Like what are
no.
we,
I don't I don't think the conversation is stupid by any means because we're just trying to figure it out, right?
yeah.
Now, what I will say I think is unwise is this men against women dynamic in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I actually think is the conversation is being held around these roles and ideals, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
make six figures and you provide me this soft life, then okay, I'll cook for you. I'll make sure you have what you need when you come home because I'm chilling. I'll
Yeah.
make sure you have a nice meal on the table. And-
It sounds like you're saying the first component of this that deserves evaluation is just very strict gender role parameters,
Right.
and then on top of that, these elements.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's the way the conversation is being had. I personally think it should be had from not from a gender role perspective, but from a value perspective, from a skill set perspective, from the capabilities of the people in the relationship.
Mhm.
Like leveraging each other's strengths and weaknesses
Yeah.
to make sure that y'all are covered in all bases instead of trying to assimilate to some image of, this soft life or this power dynamic. To me, that's the unwise part of this discussion. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
So let me put a couple of baselines out there that I at least do think exists
Okay.
and I kind of subscribe to,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And then we can springboard on some of the conversations. So number one, I mean, scriptures do say, listen, man, if a man doesn't work, he doesn't eat,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
this
Yeah.
whole premise about providing and protecting and things like that, it is an element in like manhood
Mhm.
because a man should be a coverer,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Now,
Mhm.
does that mean that in no time, will a man experience his wife maybe making more money than him?
Mhm.
Or if she does, that makes him less than a man?
Mhm.
No.
Mhm.
I think providing and protecting is centered around, well, do I have the vision? Do I have the work ethic?
Mhm.
Do I have the wisdom
Mhm.
to provide knowledge, information, guidance, and instruction?
Mhm.
Am I willing to lay my life on the line? And that's not just from a standpoint of like, if we get in danger, I'm willing to put my life on the line,
Yeah.
but am I willing to sacrifice? Like, the buck stops with me. Like
Mhm.
if someone has to go without to make sure everyone else does,
Mhm.
that's me,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I'm willing to cover and sacrifice and lay my life on the line,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
That those are baselines for me.
Yeah.
And then you also, the scripture talks about like, well, he who finds a wife findeth a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think about, well, what's the first instance of someone finding a wife? Well, that was Adam, right?
Right.
And we know scripturally, Adam was put to sleep and the woman was taken from the man. And
Mhm.
as he awakened, he's found this good thing. He said, oh my, this is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, right? And the
Mhm.
scripture says that, woman was called woman because she came from the womb
Of
of
a
man.
man. Mhm.
And that came from, ribs being taken from, Adam. And
Mhm.
then the woman was formed, right?
Mhm.
Well, from that, there was a piece of Adam that in his sleep became missing.
Mhm.
So once he awakened to her, that was the piece of him that
Mhm.
was missing. That's the reason he said, oh, yeah, this is bone of my bone. This is flesh of my flesh. Now, I know I said a lot, but what I have taken from this is I find that when men and women come together, they bring together elements that are missing from each
That's
other.
right.
And so, to the point that you're making about capabilities, we all have strengths and we all
Mhm.
have weaknesses. And the combination of us two should strengthen each other in our weak places. So,
Right.
we have diverse capabilities
Right.
and we need to be able to come together and have a good assessment of those capabilities and
Mhm.
how they complement each other
Mhm.
and partner together and then build from there. The
Exactly.
other thing I'll throw out there, then I'll throw it back to you, is there's another scripture that tells men that they should deal with their wives according to knowledge,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
What that means is they should know their wives. They
Mhm.
should understand them, their temperaments, their makeups, their capabilities, their strengths, their weaknesses, right?
Mhm.
And then dwell with them according to that, right?
Mhm.
And I think from that baseline and from that knowledge, then you can decide which areas you want to invest in
Right.
to strengthen and sharpen so
Right.
that you all can dwell together well.
Right.
But it first starts with understanding who this person is, what their strengths and weaknesses are, how those strengths and weaknesses were ordained really divinely to be connected to my strengths and weaknesses because they bring about balance with each
Mhm.
other
Mhm.
and help sharpen each other so that we can, fulfill a greater cause,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That's how I see it.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. No, I can agree with that. And I do have the same baseline, but I get what you were originally asking
mhm,
about the kind of the roles and the expectations,
right.
right? So if a man is expected in society to put his life on the line, to
Mhm.
be the one to defend and protect the family at all costs. Women want to be covered. It's like the idea of, hey, if it's raining outside, hold an umbrella for me. You know what I'm
Yeah, I mean
saying?
that's my thing. Like
Open
if
my
we
door, pull out my
okay,
chair. You know what I'm saying?
so the way it's said in a more secular space, because of course we're bringing faith perspective,
Yeah, for sure.
is talking about traditional roles versus I don't know modern
Yeah,
traditional versus modern
yeah, yeah, yeah.
roles, and sometimes the big question is, well, which portions of these are we keeping,
Right.
which portion of these are we throwing out the
Right, right,
door,
right.
right? So
Yeah,
to your point,
yeah.
if it's raining outside and I have a jacket and you don't, do
Mhm.
I take my jacket off?
Right.
Do I give you the umbrella,
Mhm.
Um, do I push a chair in when you're
Mhm.
sitting down? Do I hold your door? You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
which of these are we keeping? And
Right.
I just hit all the man
Right,
ones,
right, right.
you know. I'll let
Yeah.
you talk about the
Yeah.
lady ones,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So I think that from the lady's perspective, it sounds like to me that you don't necessarily gotta hold my door open. You don't
Mm,
necessarily have to pull my chair out, but I do want you to protect me though, you
mm.
know? If a bear were to jump out out of nowhere, I want you to be the one to fight the bear to make
Yeah.
sure we don't get ate. You know what I'm
Right, right,
saying?
right.
We gotta do something. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Don't run.
If a robber break in the house, you don't want to be like, baby, get
That's
him.
right.
You
Don't
know,
put
yeah.
me in front of you,
Yeah.
like trying to make sure,
Yeah.
trying to make sure you good. Like, now I want you to
Oh
be
man.
the man, right? And
Yeah,
protect our
yeah,
family.
yeah,
So that is an expectation.
yeah.
But then that comes with the other side of like, okay, well, what does a man then desire or expect from a woman if he is doing those things and he's putting himself on the line like that?
Hmm.
And I think a man deserves to be known, seen, understood, to be respected. You know what I'm saying? You got to respect a man that's willing to do that for you. And I think that that's whether or not he makes money or not. You know, if he's the one that is gonna get up, if somebody break in the house and he gonna make sure that everybody else is protected and safe, that man deserves respect. And this is where we get into the nuances of skill sets and capabilities
Right.
because I think knowing a person, like you said earlier, dealing with them according to knowledge, I think that goes both ways, although scripture emphasizes it with women. But knowing what a person desires, what they want, what makes them happy, what they
Mhm.
need, knowing their strengths and weaknesses. So, like, making sure that you fill the gaps. You can tell when they're weary. If that man is going out all day and he's providing for you this soft life, when he's tired, what are you doing to kind of lift him up? Or are you just expecting him to just hold it up so that you feel unburdened? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's like, where's the exchange, the value exchange? And is this conversation rooted in like, reciprocity? Or is it in
Oh wow.
just entitlement? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a big word, reciprocity, like equity, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Back and forth. And equity can take many forms because, once again, it's rooted in the makeup of the people
Mm-hmm.
and the value or the qualities. I don't want to use the word to describe the word,
Yeah.
the qualities and the capabilities that are being brought to the table. And all of that is rooted in identity,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think the first core is, do you see this person?
Right.
Do you see their identity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because by seeing a person's identity, you not only see where they stand,
Mm-hmm.
but you see where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
And it's upon that that you should make a decision on whether you want to come into agreement with that with your life,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You're coming into a full agreement with that person with your time, your money, your resources, your body,
Mm-hmm.
your future, your legacy,
Mm-hmm.
your everything, right? And it
Yep.
should be rooted on, do I see this person in their identity?
Right.
Now, that comes back to the word you used before, discernment, right?
Mhm.
I think it's impossible to really discern, or understand and see a person if you're not seeing them through the eyes of God,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
You have to, through God's lens, see a person. And it's through that that also allows you to make a good investment
Mhm.
and see a person's potential. I mean, if we were to make this practical, hey, when I met you, when you met me,
Yeah.
we were, along the journey
Yeah.
of who we would become. And we're still on that journey
Mhm.
as we speak.
For sure.
But, we've been together in totality 17, almost 18 years between
Right.
our dating and marriage,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
I can tell you for sure that I saw your potential
Mhm.
immediately.
Mhm.
Like, I had a set of standards for what it is I was looking for
Mhm.
that was very informed by a sense of purpose and
Mhm.
identity and my faith and all of that.
Mhm.
And it was through that lens I could see you, even though you were in seed form in
Mhm.
some ways, right?
Absolutely.
And I said, oh yeah.
Mhm.
I said, oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna invest right now
Yes.
so I could get the dividends for
Right.
sure.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I made that investment. and I'll let you speak on it, but I was in process.
Mhm.
In one of the last episodes or previous episodes that we did, we talked about our story,
Yeah.
and there was this moment that you talked about, wondering if I needed a ride and all that,
Yes.
right? And you were there for me in that way,
Mhm.
but here's the thing. I already was grinding
Mhm.
with vision
Mhm.
and I was making a major investment in my own future.
Right.
So while at that time period, the truth is I had more money than the average person that in that age range,
Mhm.
but I was putting all the money into an investment
Right.
into college,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Investing in my future. So
Mhm.
there were times that were up and times that were down,
Mhm.
and you met me in those transitions,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And you made a choice,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
What would you say informed your choice? Like, what were the things that you felt you saw that made you make the choice that you made? And I want to know, did it pay off?
Well,
I want to
we
know.
know it paid off. We know it paid off.
Yeah.
But, see, this is our experience is actually what forms my perspective on this
Mm,
whole topic.
yeah.
It's why when I hear certain things over and over again, it aggravates me
Mhm.
because I'm living in the reality of when you, by the grace of God, have a relationship with God, and that in turn you have the help of the Holy Spirit active in your life to be able to discern people and relationships and the opportunities to have relationships that come into your life. When you discern them, that character, their integrity, I made a comment in our last one of our videos where we talked about our story.
Mhm.
And, I said, man, I knew that I could trust you. You know, I knew that I could trust you after we had a spiritual exchange in a moment, right? That opened up a side of myself to you to share in our faith, right?
Right.
But it wasn't just that. I fortunately was able to be in the environment with you to observe your character, us working together, being in a common environment, us starting to go to church together. I got to see your character. How do you treat people? How do you treat your friends? How do you engage and interact with your family members? When you're grinding and going to school, what kind of effort are you putting into it? How much does it matter to you? When you say you're going to do something, are you getting it done? If you tell me you're going to do something, are you keeping your word? You know what I'm saying? Like, I had time as we developed our friendship to observe these qualities about you. And those are the things that made me say, oh, shoot, like, I see this man has a relationship with God, because that was like the highest priority,
Mhm.
you know. But beyond that, in his character, he's strong. He has strong principles that govern him. So, and you were so and still are a very stable person in your principles. So when I saw that you were unwavering, like you weren't easily persuaded, you were a leader, and I respect that.
Mm.
I could see myself respecting you.
Yeah.
I respected you then as your friend, to see all the things you were trying to achieve. And then I just believed, like in my heart, I was like, man, I believe in him. Like he's going to be great. He's going to do amazing things,
Yeah.
and because I had that belief, informed by the spiritual connection and informed by observing you, seeing your fruit, right? And your fruit was not, you got the best car, although you did end up getting a really
Yeah,
nice
man.
car back then. But that wasn't it. You know what I'm
Yeah, yeah,
saying? For
yeah.
our age
It was
range,
it was after you gave me the ride
it
though.
was
It was
after
after you
it
gave
was after you gave
shortly
me the
after I
ride.
pulled
You
up
bought your
in
own
the
car,
buggy.
you know what I'm saying? And it was a
Yeah.
nice one,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I knew because we were friends the sacrifice you made for
Yeah.
even that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
And so you going without that for a period of time to then work up and in a very smart way get the vehicle that you wanted to get. Like that taught me, oh man, he's willing to have delayed gratification. And
Yeah.
he doesn't care about putting on airs to look like he's in a certain place
Yeah.
or, conform to social pressure to, put on like he's doing something while he's still in his process of getting there. No, he's fully engrossed in getting there. and willing to make whatever sacrifice it takes, not caring what anybody thinks about that. And to me, that was like, oh man, this is a solid dude, you know?
Man, you said so much, so much. I mean, I'm gonna do my best to pull some nuggets out there that I think are so important.
Hmm.
The first thing, you never hear anything in these conversations about men and women actually being friends.
Well, yeah, that's true
So that's
too.
first of all, it's so metric based. It
Hmm.
takes the humanity out of men and women while the
True.
conversation is being had.
That's true.
And no one's having a conversation about building solid friendships.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the first thing that's
That's true.
disheartening about the conversation.
Yeah.
And that's the other part about investment because, well, if you're not the person's friend and you're not making any investments in them as a friend along the way, if they do choose you, what's going to make you think that they're really going to truly care about you?
Right.
You're just going to be another one of their accomplishments
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
another one of their attachments
Mhm.
to being the man.
Mhm.
And that's what you don't realize you're in danger of if you're just like, hey, I'll only be with a man that's already achieved all these things and I
Right.
made no investment in it, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And if that man has a certain mindset to where
Mhm.
they're going after the things because they want the accoutrement, you know what
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean?
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
rewards of
Right.
it, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna treat you like an object, like a
Mhm.
trophy.
Mhm.
That's a reward for their achievements, right? And
Yeah.
I doubt that's what people are really looking
For
for,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
But then you said a bigger word. You said you believed in
I
me.
did.
Oh man, the fuel of I'll say for men. I'll speak for men. And listen, if you disagree, hit the comments.
Yes. Hit the
Hit those
comments.
comments.
This
I
is
want to hear it.
yeah. We want to
Okay?
know. We want to know what you think.
I think the fuel for a man when it pertains to women
Mhm.
is you believing in us.
Mhm.
That's the fuel. That's the only currency I really want,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Yes, we want somebody that brings smarts and intelligence
Mhm.
and stuff to the table. Listen, if you want to make Oprah money
Mhm.
and make me a house husband and Stedman, girl, you go, girl, you do it,
Right. Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
But in the interim,
Mhm.
the greatest fuel is knowing you believe in me
That's right.
and
Yeah.
you respect me.
Yeah.
You see who I am.
Mhm.
You see the vision that I
Mhm.
have. You take pride and honor
Mhm.
in being a part of that
Mhm.
vision and you collaborate with me
Mhm.
and you're there in the trenches. You're there whether I'm high or whether I'm low. That's really what struck me even when we were in that college time
Yeah.
period and your willingness to say, I want to be there for you in a certain way. Well, that showed me, oh man, you believed in me.
Mhm.
Even me, although I was instrumental in, sharing some things with you spiritually,
Mhm.
well, the thing I can see in hindsight that really struck me that gave us an opportunity to go to this level of relationship, it was your posture.
Mhm.
Your posture was very open, and I could tell you believed in
Mhm.
me, you trusted me,
Mhm.
you respected my leadership, you
Mhm.
were open to my leadership,
Mhm.
and you helped me in a high place.
Mhm.
Oh man, that is the fuel that,
Honor.
oh man, honor,
Yeah.
honor.
Mhm.
That's the word,
Mhm.
right? That's the fuel that can help a man jump over a mountain,
Mhm.
man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And a man needs to be self-motivated for sure.
Mhm.
He needs to be self-motivated within himself.
Mhm.
But what women really bring to the table is when a woman brings a posture of respect and honor and she
Mhm.
believes in you, oh man,
Mhm.
that does everything
Yeah.
for a man,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So friendship, that belief and that honor. Man, you hit one more that's trying to elude me, man. But you hit so many things that are important
Mhm.
that it's like, oh man,
Mhm.
you know?
Well, I think one of them is just time. Like
Yeah.
give being patient enough to take the time to observe a person,
Mm-hmm.
and because I do think that it's hard out here from what I hear in the streets,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to find good people, things like that. So when you find someone you want to latch on, you might want to move quickly
Yeah.
because people are up against an ideal of time that they may have in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
If they're a certain age or different things like that, or just see themselves being at a certain place in life. Like, and I think everybody or a lot of people do that. And then because you have the normal Like by the time you graduate high school, you're supposed to be here. By the time you finish college, you're supposed to be here. By the time you get to this 30, you're supposed to be somewhere. By the
Right.
time you turn 40, you're supposed to be somewhere.
Hmm.
So, I think we have these timelines in mind that also are prioritized in a way that at the end of the day, sometimes slowing down and taking your time to just observe, watch, and pray, like, can help you have delayed gratification
Hmm.
so that you can, ultimately just kind of walk a little bit slow until you see whether or not this is the thing you're actually hoping for and looking for. And then once you realize, okay, yeah, this is it, then you can kind of pick up the pace from there. But I think, slowing down is a part of that too.
Yeah, I mean, if you study and analyze most valuable things
Mhm.
in life, they don't come fast.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it takes
it
time.
takes time, it takes investment, right, to
Mhm.
get the highest quality things in
Mhm.
life. And, everything is in a hurry
Yeah.
nowadays.
Yeah.
And the bigger thing too is we're not cultivating the ability to just have healthy relationships between men and women in general
Mhm.
as humans
Yeah,
and
sure.
as friends, right?
Mhm.
And I think we need to slow down and just hear each other,
Mhm.
listen to each other,
Mhm.
have healthy friendships. We're leading with consumption. We're
Yeah.
leading
Yeah.
with consuming them for
Mhm.
our romantic wants and
Mhm.
needs,
Mhm.
consuming each other for our ego's sake, consuming
Exactly.
each other for our economical needs and wants,
Right.
consuming each other for status,
Yep.
a lifestyle. And it's
Mhm.
just consumption, consumption, consumption,
Mhm.
as opposed to, man, we slow down and take the time to just appreciate each other as people,
Yeah.
get to know each other
Yeah.
and see who the person is. And as you said, we had the privilege of being in a work environment. We previously expressed how we both were just very focused on other things
Mhm.
than romance. So by being in that environment and then having really quality exchanges that enriched each other spiritually
Right.
and in other areas, we got to really know each other
Right.
and see the value and potential of one another and
Mhm.
then make a decision to
Mhm.
make an investment,
Mhm.
right?
Yep. That's
So,
right. That's right. I think something else that is a challenge today too, because I think you said consumption. I think the consumption is rooted in fear.
wow, yeah,
Because there's a fear of wasting time. There's a fear of vulnerability too.
yeah,
Like, you know, I think a lot of people just need to feel in control of,
yeah,
how things play out and like, making sure that things get to where they're trying to get to. And it makes all the sense in the world, but at the end of the day, if you're in a relationship with anybody, you can't control the risk of vulnerability. Like that has to be a part of it.
yeah,
There's no guarantee that it's going to be this ideal thing. So, one of the things that I think could help people slow down, and it's something that I'm actually trying to practice in my regular friendships and learn, is people come into your life for a reason, and what is it that you can grow? Like, how can you grow and learn from these relationships, and what can these relationships teach you? That can then whether they don't have to be romantic, but let's say you have a romantic relationship with someone and it just don't work out. Like, what did you learn though? Like, how did you grow from it? Why did God allow you to encounter that person? What mistakes were made along the way? I think if we could just put ourselves, have a little more faith and be willing to be vulnerable. I think along with that could come some humility and openness to say, hey, you know, I can learn from things even if they don't go the way that I hope for.
yeah,
I can grow from just building and have relationships and trying to make connections with people and just slowing down to where everything doesn't have to fall in this stringent, like very narrow uh, you know, um, structure or idea that people have about what is valuable.
yeah. I think in order to do that, it requires a couple of things. First of all, it takes a very secure person
Yeah.
to go into relationships and look to get the value
Yeah.
and go through the process
Mhm.
and not require it to be what they think it should be,
Right.
but search for the true treasure of all their relationships, be it romantic or just friend relationships.
Mhm.
But I think that security, in my opinion, only comes from God,
Mhm.
because it's only God that can give you a solid sense of
Yeah,
identity,
it's true.
can give you the fruit of the spirit and the self government
Mhm.
that you then can be patient
Mhm.
and loving, and you can, be enduring to appreciate people and gain value from them and not be shaken as you go through the relationship to
Mhm.
gain that value, right?
Mhm.
And then there's a scripture that says, well, perfect love casteth out all fear,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And God is love. So
Mhm.
it's once you truly
Mm.
fall in love with God, you
Mhm.
can then fall in love with yourself.
Mhm.
Then you can properly love people,
Mhm.
and it makes you less afraid
Yeah.
because you're secure in God, you're secure in who you are,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And you're secure about why it is you're even choosing to love a person, right?
Right.
I mentioned before that, when me and you started developing our relationship, I deeply care for you. And I told you I loved you before I ever dated you
Yeah.
romantically. And when I
Mhm.
said that, it wasn't romantic. I loved you as a person.
Right.
Well, it was because I was solid in my relationship with God, solid in my own security and who I am and love for myself.
Mhm.
And then when I looked at you, I loved you for you, not what I could get out of you.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was the foundation that I then could have a
Mhm.
romantic relationship with you later,
Mhm.
but that's not where I started. I
Right.
started in a place that I came into this love relationship just loving you.
Mhm.
That made me open to what I can give in the
Mhm.
relationship,
Mhm.
right? And not just solely looking for what I can take,
Mhm.
and I didn't have the fear
Yeah.
of coming into relationship with you and, the risk of my heart and stuff like that. Now,
Mhm.
if I could be honest, we could talk about this another episode.
Yeah.
It was once we shifted to the romantic that some of those fears came into
Yes.
play,
Mhm.
right? Where it's
Mhm.
like, oh, do they have this? Do they have that
Yeah.
against these ideas I
Mm.
had
Mhm.
romantically and all this stuff, right?
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
And but it's the ability to come in from a very secure place that's rooted and just being solid on the inside in your
Mhm.
spirit, your relationship with God, and your identity
Yeah.
that you can love well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. I mean, we we could talk about a lot of twists and turns and
Yes.
lessons learned from our experiences along the way because none of it is perfect, but it
Mm-hmm.
is a journey that you can learn from.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that 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 vulnerability, that having a solid sense within yourself through your relationship with God, like, there's nothing more valuable than that. There's nothing more valuable than that. That's like the priceless thing that, I mean, it doesn't matter what happens around you in life. Like, that's the thing that nothing or no one can ever like take away from you, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
And you can't put a dollar on that.
Oh no, you can't.
Yeah, you can't put
You
it's
can't.
invaluable. So I
Yeah.
think we need to elevate the conversation of a high value man to that which is priceless,
Yes.
that which is invaluable,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That'll pay dividends even once that man is long gone.
Right.
Because this is really about a generational thing too.
Mhm.
You want the things that are eternal,
Mhm.
that will, spill down into your kids and your
Mhm.
grandkids and all of
Mhm.
that. And it transcends
Yeah.
a dollar metric.
For sure. For sure. I agree with that 100%.
So let's recap this. I think we're saying that high value transcends this dollar metric.
Mhm.
And from our seat, it's a lot more qualitative measures
Mhm.
and metrics, right?
Mhm.
That should be taken into account. And we need the ability to discern in the first place those
Mhm.
qualitative measures and let that be the foundation. And from there, that gives the higher potential that a person can get to some of these more quantitative metrics.
Yeah.
And even if they do, their management of those quantitative metrics, their management of you and your heart,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Their management of all the things that really bring peace and happiness, it'll be on a higher level.
Yeah.
What do you say?
I agree. A higher level for sure.
Oh man. Get in those comments, man. I want to hear it. I want
Yes.
to
We want to
hear,
know what you think.
you know,
Yeah. We want to know your perspective. We want to know, like, what do you think about this high value concept? What's your perspective as a man? What's your perspective as a woman?
yeah, if we missed something, man, I want to hear
Yeah, we want to
Patricia.
know. Patricia.
Yeah, Patricia's back.
She's back.
Patricia, get in those comments.
Let us know.
Let us know.
Yeah.
All right, man. This has been another episode of the Para Podcast.
Yes.
Man, it's our pleasure. We can't wait to the next one. We want to hear from you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button.
Yes.
Get in those comments.
Share.
Engage us. Hit us on our socials, man.
Yes.
Hey. Till next time.
All right, y'all.
We'll
Bye.
holler.